Boat vlog. Boat vlog. So, there it is, it's mounted. There's my little mounts. They screw straight onto that mount there. Well, that angle there. I don't know what you call that, a shelf I suppose. Yeah, it's just a pair of suspension bushes, and I made up a mount and a ring and all that sort of stuff, and the adjustable height. And I just kept pulling the motor up and down, adjusting and adjusting. It's on the other side. I haven't painted that one for some reason. Don't remember why. And there's my alignment tool, and that goes in and out with just hand pressure, which is great. Obviously, it slides in the back there. Yeah, there it is. You can just see it in the middle of the shot there, entering the drive bell. I've got my steering connected with my new Hoover Doover link, which has got no slop in it like the other one did. A couple of rose joints and some stainless pipe, a few nuts, bit of welding. Beautiful. Of course, I probably showed you before that I reconned all the inside the housing there. It's all covered in bloody cobwebs and leaves and shit now, but yeah, fixed that up, greased it all, put oil down the cable. I repositioned the cable where it came out of the control box, and that runs all the way back to there. Obviously I'm going to get some P-clamps and hook everything up once all the wiring's in, once all the control cables. I still got to sort out what I'm going to do with the control cable, with the control system. I have no idea how to mount that and what I'm going to do and how I'm going to route the fucking cables so that they go inside here and they miss everything, and yeah, so that when you go full throttle they don't bang into here like the old ones did. Awesome. I've also, you may have noticed, taken the top off so I can get it under my patio. But once it comes out from under the patio, I'm actually going to raise the roof, because when I'm standing, when I'm standing here, my head hits the top. If I've got some weight in the front and the front's down, I can sit on a stool and actually see where I'm going and be able to navigate fairly well. I've replaced all these perspex, by the way. That won't rattle much, will it? It's actually a lot more solid when you put the top back on, but yeah. As you can see, it's been sitting for fucking ever. It's all covered in crap. I'll get my boy up here at some point with a wet rag and a hose. And yeah, I've got my fuel tank, which is not installed at the moment. I was just working on the motor. I knew there'd be a lot of fiberglass flying around. I cut the whole back of the boat out, so the interior of the boat out. I think once the cover goes on this, I'm going to have good deck space right to the back. I'll have two seats, one there and one here. That's coming out. I'll put the seats on stems so that you can sit on them and see where you're going. And I put a cover on this so it's easy to grip. I've got a new centre for it, but it's, as you can see, the plastic shrunk into a triangle. But I reckon I can actually pull this back off, mount it in a lathe and just turn that round enough to put the centre in it. A little hub cover on it. Steering hub cover. Gonna fill this hole or put a battery selector there. I don't know. I gotta see how much a battery selector costs, because I'm running on fucking fumes at the moment. I really have got no fucking money. Got to work out where I'm going to put the water intake and plumb that. Yeah, this is where it really picks up the pace, actually. I've stopped working on the bikes, even though I've got a bunch of them here, and I'm just flogging to get things done here. So the motor itself is ready. The motor itself is ready. That water pump needs the shaft rebuilt again for the third time. I fucked it up last time when I pulled it apart. If I'd left it, it would have been okay with the first shaft. But I pulled that apart, and when I press it back together, That big mount that comes off the motor, which is 40mm aluminium, is really shitty grade aluminium, and it just fucking isn't very good. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not gonna whinge about that. I'll put a sleeve, like a steel sleeve that the bearing sits in, into the that bolts in with the front cover. So I'll put a steel sleeve, like a top hat sleeve, that holds the bearing, because when that bearing, the main bearing went in, which is a double row roller, it picked up and dug a big fucking hole in the bore, and now it's not straight anymore. Now it doesn't turn straight anymore. And I'll make another, in all probability, I'll make another 4140 shaft for it. So there's another 2 days of machining on the mill and on the lathe, and yeah, that shaft wasn't very good anyway. I over machined the front of it and lost my press fit because but basically my big mistake was making the first shaft too soft, and things went wrong with it when I pulled it apart. So, the other thing I've done, very exciting. Hang on, let me go inside, turn the music down. There's my leg, my lovely legs competition. Where is it? Where the hell is it? There it is, over there. I rebuilt this. Completely and utterly rebuilt my, the motor for my, heavy fucking thing. This is the tilt trim motor, hydraulic pump. I rebuilt the, I had two of them, because I had two complete setups that I bought with this boat. One was partially dismantled, but only the bottom part of it. Someone had pulled this bottom cover off and not seen anything and thought, oh, it's too complex for me. I don't know why, but I pulled it apart, and the actual pump is mounted on this plate on the inside. So inside the tank, and this part's obviously the tank. So I pulled that bottom plate off, and that exposes that there's one long shaft on the armature that comes down. It's just got two flats on it at the bottom that slip into a gear, and a tiny little gear pump. It's just absolutely dinky, and it's run by this motor. This motor's reversible by two power wires. One goes this way, one goes that way. It's very simple. What was a problem was, I'll show you on the one that's still pulled apart. Okay. Here's all the spare parts that I've got. That's obviously a tank. It's a very simple design. It's got a seal on the top there where the armature shaft comes through, and it's just a tank. There's the filler hole, and that's meant to be a breather. But the one on mine was sealed up, so I don't know how the fuck it worked. Now, this was a brush plate. Oh, that's better. Maybe. That's the brush plate, and as you can see, there's absolutely nothing left of those fucking brushes. Fucking hell, why won't this focus? Hey! Okay, and this brush plate actually connects to these pole shoes. Now, as you can see in this one, this was the one that was on that unit over there. The pole shoes are unwrapped, everything's exposed. It's a terrible idea. Something's eating them up. This is the pump itself. Now, when you pull that pump off, you need to be super careful. There is a bunch of plungers, springs, bolts, all sorts of stuff that need to, and these little caps that go in that sit on the balls. They all need to be in the right position, and you need to take note. So you need to pull it up about 1 millimeter and start looking and draw where everything goes so that you know. There is some stuff online, but it isn't very definitive. You also need the right external Torx bits to undo that, which I'd have, because they're on motorbikes. So, the big thing, and this is a big thing, is that the armature in it, and this is the thing that will kill a pump, right? Any starter motor, fucking generator, anything. If this is fucked, you are fucked, right? You need a new one of these, right? Okay, so what it is, what I did on it was first I washed it all out, washed all the oil out of it, because the seal in the bottom of the tank leaks. As you can see, there's just oil and everything here. And it sucks up oil. When it pressurizes, it blows oil into the motor. Washed off the all the oil with some naphtha spirits shellite, which is what I use to basically dry off parts. Put it in the lathe. Dress the commutator, because the commutator on that one, this one isn't too bad actually. You can see the dip in it, but it's not too bad. The one that I pulled out of that motor had a big fucking divot in it from the brushes. Yeah, you can see the wear mark there. It's not great. I dressed it so it was flat, sanded it, scraped the, as you can see there's segments with lines between them. Now you need to scrape all of the excess copper that gets moved around from the machining and all of the grime out of there, and then wash them out thoroughly. Then dress it again with some memory tape or some glass paper. And then, and I cleaned up the bearing surfaces, obviously. And the bottom was quite bad on that other thing, but you know, it's okay. It certainly works well. Put it all together, made some new brushes, because I'm not sure you can actually buy the brushes, but if you can, I didn't bother because I had, every time you buy a rotor, alternator rotor for a BMW, they send you a new set of brushes. Now these brushes are 5x6 millimeters. That's great. Well, there's their BMW brushes are 5mm, but they're by about 10 millimeters. So all I had to do was grind the sides off them until they sort of looked right, and soldered them in. And so problem solved with solder. And some spare brushes out of a BMW rotor, BMW alternator. Yeah, BMW alternator. So that was the one out of that came off my good pump that was working when I pulled it out. But the other pole shoes were good, better, still wrapped in, looked in pretty good nick. So I nicked that. So I nicked that body and put it on here. Put the new brushes in, greased up the bushes, cleaned everything thoroughly because it was a fucking disgrace. Cleaned everything thoroughly and rebuilt the pump as best I could with second-hand parts. New O-rings in the bottom here. Made sure all these fittings were nicely taped off and blanked when I painted it, so I wouldn't get any paint there. And the coup de grace is what I'm using to actually switch it. This is a Chinese winch switch. So it's a switch that you would use to switch power for your, because obviously this is a very high amperage motor. It's direct drive to the pump, so it would draw a fair bit of power. So all I need to do to this now, I've got these connected up, and it's pretty clear in the instructions that you get with these. I think these are $27. I made a little mounting panel for it, mounted it where the other, where those big dopey American switches mount. What do you call them? I don't even know what brand they are. I think they're actually Delco solenoid switches. I put this on. This is a lot lighter and probably going to be a bit better. And all you do is attach a negative there, attach a high amp positive there. And these two, when you power them up, it turns the motor in one direction or the other. So that's really easy for wiring up to whatever. Is it white focus today? Wiring up to whatever setup you've got. Yeah, and all I've done is set up an up-down switch. I've got no limiting switches, nothing like that. It's, you don't really need them, and all they ever do is fuck up. I've got them on the boat, the limiting switches, but just to cover up the ends of those pivots on the gimbal. So really happy with that. It works. And like I say, I've hooked it up and tested it. And the last thing I did is I always hated the, they've got a big aluminium screw. It actually screws into here for the filler. What I did was I made one that was easy to get out. You don't need a screwdriver to get it out if you need to top it up. And it's a dipstick, so you actually know how much oil's in there. Because even when you pull the other fucking thing out, you don't know how much oil's in there. So I made that on the lathe and just because I thought, well, if I'd have built this, I would have put a dipstick on it. So I did. And what else is happening? There's a boat. Boat on the side of a motorbike. More fiberglass in it than my boat, I reckon. What else is happening? Fuck all, really. That's it. I've just got a ton of work. It's got a little tail now. The aligning tool. I'm amazed how well it aligned. That was a big shot. I was able to do it and it wasn't a big fucking drama. I'm really happy about that. Oh guys, I'll see you soon because next is the exhaust. Cheers.